welcome back to the 11th edition of Red Shoes Talks. I'm Simon Lehman from AJL Atelier. Today, I have an amazing person with me on Red Shoes Talks, which I've known for a long time to come, and I always said we meet at least twice in life. Today, I have Mickey Kropf, the CEO and founder of Vector Travel in the United States. Welcome, Mickey. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Simon. I'm very pleased to be here.
Fantastic. As I said, you and I met in New York. It's been quite a while ago, together with Andrew McConnell, and things have evolved. So you have been in the industry for quite a while, and you have decided to run your own business. Tell us a little bit more on where you came from and then what you have decided to do.
Yeah, geez, it seems like I was a wee pup back then. Knew very little about the industry or running a business or whatever, but thankfully, I have come a long way, I think. So we ran, it was called Vacation Futures, then rented.com, and that's still in existence. But I stepped away in early 2018 when I saw an opportunity within the apartment industry. So we call it the multifamily industry here. And the likes of Sonder and Stay Alfred and Lyric, they were already out there, really around one model, which was the corporate lease model, and it would also come in another version of the master lease model. So maybe they're taking whole floors or maybe the entire building, but they would take that risk and then they would keep the upside. But through rented.com experience, we bumped into the apartment industry with that model. And yet I saw a gap. I saw, the fact that there weren't any true fee managers, that the real estate companies were getting leases, but that they were also taking on the default risk of those leases. And, when the deals went well, they weren't participating in that upside. And I thought, I know it's not maybe the sexiest business, but it hasn't been done within this vertical. Why don't we bring in really, truly the vacation rental model, or the hotel management model and apply it to multi.
And then apply it to multifamily. Sorry, I was rude enough to interrupt you. I'm just cringing with a question. Is that something you decided right from the start to actually do with the fee management approach when you went into this, or did you just go into the multifamily and went with the hype of lease arbitrage and the massive margins that were out there?
Yeah, I mean, from inception. So I was never toying with the idea of lease arbitrage with this business. I just feel like if you're going to create something, you should try to create something that's new and going to bring some value. And I think I would have had a hard time even just being interested in it. I need it to be hard, I think, individually, personally, and it was. I had a co-founder, and we both came from the industry, so we knew the landscape. But I had never been a hospitality person before. I had worked in commercial real estate, then I had done a marketplace within short-term rentals. But there's one thing about like knowing trends or knowing how to get a deal done, and there's a totally different thing to be a hospitality person. And I don't think I really became one until maybe 2020. But now I kind of live and breathe it every day, and I preach it. And I learn from my team members, and we get out into the market, we learn from our guests, and things have gotten better and better as a result.
It's very impressive and it's a very gutsy move as well, because the point that I'm trying to make, Mickey, is that you can say you are the smartest of all of them and say we're not going into the commitment of leases, we're going to do fee structures instead, because this whole thing is too risky, because then you probably are now the smartest person in the multifamily industry, because you saw this coming, that doing lease commitments, because it's interesting, and we'll definitely talk about this for a second. But I had a lot of inbound, obviously, questions of different companies who came to us and say, how should we handle that? How do you view that business? And obviously, us at AJL, we didn't have a pandemic on the radar, without a doubt. But what we had on the radar when we said is that the biggest risk that we see is a change in interest rate, right? We know that interest rates are super low. We understand that, taking master leases and do an arbitrage on lease can give you margins between 40 and 60%. And then we said, how can you serve that debt? And how can you finance that debt that you need to take on your balance sheet just by, let's say, an interest rate would raise to 5%? It would break everybody's back, right?
Well, but also the most, I think at least the most units leased were done not with debt funds, at least not initially, not for the majority of the last 5 years. They were done with venture equity capital. I mean, some of the most expensive capital out there. And so to further your point, right? So yes, interest rate risk, but also just a really inefficient use of capital. And then not to mention, the need for growth when you have that kind of backing. So you got to show growth of unit count, growth of revenue, and what we saw was the degradation of those 40 to 60% margins, probably into negative territory. Who knows? I mean, those are private companies. As they scaled up their teams, as they invested more heavily in technology and PR and everything else. And so, I think it's proven to be generally an unsustainable model, with the exception of, the very long-term deals and really only the most prime assets. And that wasn't our view. Our view was far more egalitarian. It was pulling back and taking a broader picture, saying, okay, there's 25 million units just in the US within multifamily. Well, the super majority of those aren't going to be a fit for this lease arbitrage model, but that doesn't mean that a traveler doesn't want to stay there. I mean, I like to think of it like the hotel continuum. I think people can latch onto that, and you say, okay, what are some of the best properties in the world? Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton, they've got great locations. They're amazing. The service is amazing. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm not saying that this is all we do, but just to hammer home the point, there's a Motel 6 and there's a Budget Inn, and then somewhere in the middle there's these Holiday Inn, but Holiday Inn Express, and then right. So you've got everything in between, and that's how we function. We've said, okay, we're going to bring this model, and we're not going to focus on a certain market. We're not going to focus on a certain range. We're only going to focus on our category of multifamily, and we're only going to do this model. And that's been hard, right? As you go out to market and you get down the line with a deal, and you're almost there, and then somebody, a stakeholder not at the table from legal or a lender or an insurance provider comes in and says, yeah, but we need some kind of rent guarantee here. Even if we're going to do that, we still need a guarantee. I've had to kill deals. I've had to do them with some of the bigger companies within the multifamily space. That's tough on somebody like me who's growth oriented. We're not venture backed at this point. I don't think we ever will be, but I put that pressure on us to grow, and yet sometimes you gotta say no to stay true to your model.
Incredible, and obviously learning the hard way too. That's quite amazing. But obviously, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But I quickly want to go back to the master lease or the arbitrage business first of all. So was it as simple as they went bust because the demand just stopped? Was it as simple as that? They couldn't serve the debt? Or they couldn't serve the lease commitments?
No, I don't think it's that simple. I think it's that there was the unknown around the length of the pandemic, and the businesses were generally all propped up by outside capital. So they weren't. I mean, look, again, I don't know. This is my view of it, but it seems like they were running negative unit economics, and then they had all of their operating overhead on top of that, and so they already had bad deals. Like, even if you didn't have all of the personnel to go with it, they already had bad deals, and they had the pressure to grow more. And then you're looking at, how long is this pandemic going to be? Well, we've never developed a vaccine as quickly as it turns out we have, but they're saying 1 year, 2 years, whatever of this. And I think, some of these investors just said, let's pull the plug, let's unwind, let's liquidate, return some of that capital to investors. And that's what happened. And, some of them got caught maybe off cycle with their fundraising. And then others like Sonder had enough of a story and enough of a footprint, or maybe just enough sunk costs for their investors to say, all right, let's continue. And, I don't know what their longer term vision was, if they thought they were going to pivot into fee management. I've always assumed they would, but we keep our heads down and do what we do nonetheless. But we are seeing that the other, I'd call it the tier 2 and tier 3 players within multifamily hospitality, have started to pivot towards this, whether it was workouts on their leases that they've defaulted on, and then they're saying, hey, how about we do rev share to try to write this for you guys, or commitment on their new business inventory, only doing revenue share or some version of it. And I think that is an opportunity for innovation for those watching this that maybe don't do multifamily short-term rentals, but they do short-term rentals or vacation rentals, is just to think about the business model in general, and to think, hey, you are the expert, you know it really well, you know the problems that go with it and the benefits. And so maybe there are other ways that you can solve that with maybe, some set dollar amount to you guys per month, like almost like a maintenance or an asset management fee, in addition to revenue share. Maybe it's gradations on, progressive sort of rates. Anyway, there's probably 100 ways to skin the cat if you can come up with them and get the counterparty to agree to it.
And we'll definitely get into more detail on that as well. But just, sort of finishing off the conversation on the master lease. I mean, very, very, very seldom we have seen a vertical in hospitality to grow so incredibly fast than this business. And everybody wanted to have a chunk of it. And therefore the competition was massive. So the margins came down super quickly when they were bidding on these buildings against each other as well. And they raised an enormous amount of capital, which unfortunately in most cases has now gone to waste. There's two other points that you have mentioned that I want to quickly cover, Mickey.
Yeah.
One is operations overhead, and the third one is technology. We've had the pleasure to speak together on Flex this week, and we talked about tech adoption. And one of the big questions, I had an interesting tech panel with Jetstream and Aperto and Breezeway. And whenever we consult with master lease or multifamily property managers, they come to us and say, look, we want to own tech end to end. But obviously that doesn't come cheap. And now with them having to save costs and everything else very quickly, do you think is that going to change, or what's your view on technology going forward as a whole?
I mean, I think it should change. I think, the whole economy, the global economy is around division of labor, but also, specialization. And so I think we heard it in that Flex panel, another conversation, but somebody from Amley saying, hey, look, we're in the apartment development, apartment ownership, apartment management business. We're not a technology developer, and we're not a short-term rental company. And I think we should keep that in mind as, short-term rental managers, vacation rental managers, that in the end, this is an operating business. We're bringing a hospitality layer to it, and we're bringing operations, and that's our lane right there. Now, yes, there's absolutely technology that supports that, and we have some of our own proprietary technology, revenue analytics platform, but and we'll take on some other things, especially owning our own distribution at some point, but there's no shame in an off-the-shelf PMS or an off-the-shelf, channel manager, or off-the-shelf tool like Breezeway that helps you manage, turns. We use all of these things that are off the shelf at this point, and I don't see, especially if you have any kind of scale and you have, kind of enterprise rates with them, it's pretty hard to replicate that. It's going to take you a long time to earn back that investment. And you also have to think about the maintenance of those things. You don't just build a software and it's done. You got to maintain it and you got to innovate it over time. And so, and then to tie it back to truly the vacation rental side of things, we saw Vacasa they did fixed rent, they called it, I think, but guarantees, and they're a technology player within the space. But I think in the end, again, they're an operating business and they're a hospitality provider, and I'll applaud them that as they've gotten to scale, they kind of pulled back from those fixed rent guarantees, and they said, all right, let's focus on our core. And I think primarily, and by the way, they were in multifamily for a while, but they pulled back and they said, let's focus on what we do well, and that's fee management for vacation rental owners.
Absolutely. But you know better than anyone how important it is to scale fast, and fixed rent allows you to scale very fast, because you get a lot of homeowners who like that, right? So.
Absolutely, but like scale over efficiency works if you're only a software company. At some point you gotta show some profit, and I know you've been harping on that for quite a while, and I think that is. I hope that's a nice takeaway for anybody in the space that's seen, a Vacasa or other companies or Sonder, come in relatively short order, get to the size that they have. It's just to say, wait a second though, this isn't a race. We need to run a good business. We need to do right by our guests. That's the most important thing. Take care of our employees, take care of our clients, and we've done well for ourselves if we've done those things. So
let's go to the third level. So we talked about competition and business model. We talked about tech. And now we talk about operations and hospitality. So when we talk about cost and looking in the past, and that's where it gets heavy, right? So obviously as well, we want to cover that end to end. We want to lift that game, provide hospitality-like services. We're still addressing a large amount of customers who have never rented before, and their expectation is somewhat different to somebody who is used to renting a vacation rental or whatever. They know what it is like. So you need to you need to provide a seamless experience, and that coming costly as well. And you need to have the operations. You need to have the boots on the ground. How do you handle that? And what's sort of the secret sauce, the recipe to be successful in scaling operation very carefully? And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who want to know that question. Interesting enough, just before we jumped on our show today, I was on a call with a property manager in Scandinavia, in Sweden, and talking to them about how they want to scale versus unit density, but they want to provide a full hotel-like service to it with 40 units. I mean, you will never have the unit economics to make that work.
That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think you have to be pragmatic about it. If you're going to spread yourself thin, and Vector has done that. We decided pretty early on that we'd be client driven and go where they asked us to go as long as it was legal. And so, pretty quickly into our trajectory, we were in, a dozen markets or something, but we couldn't afford to have 12 market managers in each market earning, robust salaries and doing an excellent job and full in-house housekeeping and all of that stuff. So again, we had to be pragmatic. We had to say, all right, we want to say yes. Now, how do we do that? And for us, that meant getting creative on, 24/7 support. How can we offer that, but maybe not be there? How can we solve for as much as possible the guest wayfinding, getting into a unit, and then when things go wrong, still communicating and us still fixing it. I mean, hey, the first client, it was me doing all of the operations. So, remember I said I wasn't a hospitality person. I had to learn pretty quickly, and I still don't think I got there for a couple of years. But, I'm prime nowing extra towels or toilet paper because I wasn't where the property was. I know that's totally counterintuitive for most people. They say, all right, I'm in this destination market, and I need to be here and I need maintenance and whatever. But I think if you're leveraging technology and you're leveraging the contract labor pool as much as you can, but also strive for some consistency there. So if you can select those personnel, they're not really an employee, yes, but you can train them a little bit and you can have some consistency. Maybe you need 3 people, whereas if you were in the market and you had density, you could have 1 and train them really well and never have to worry about it. Yeah, you got to manage it a little bit more. It's harder in some ways, but it's more efficient and you get it done.
Incredible. So you hear it from the master. He made his experience himself and you get it done. That's what it needs to happen, right? So let's talk about the future, Mickey. So, trying to put 2020 behind us, I think for most of the world, it's been a challenging one. It has shown us vulnerability. It has shown us, how businesses can go disappear as quickly as they've come. And, somewhat the human mankind is not a good learner, but we need to learn from that and say, okay, what does that mean? And if you look at the multifamily business as a whole, Mickey, where you're operating, what has that pandemic or that change to the market environment done? And how do you see now multifamily investors and operators look at that market going forward?
Yeah, I think the days of negative unit economics on units that are being operated are gone. I mean, you can have them, but there has to be a pretty achievable ramp up period to where you actually attain what you want. So, yes, you're probably going to go negative if you have any kind of forward commitment on labor or on, the inventory that you're managing, but you need to be able to show probably within 2 quarters how that's going to flip to the black for you. I think investors in general have probably learned, yes, they play for the unicorns and they're okay with their losses, but too many of those, it builds a negative track record. And I think even pulling back from our industry and prop tech writ large, and maybe even just VC writ large, I think they're going to be looking for companies that have figured some of that out. What cost of acquisition, lifetime value really looking really solid, margins looking solid, at least pretty early on. And then just a commitment to operations, a commitment to some values and things where it's not just, a story and win and grow at all costs. I do think there's going to be a little more reason infused into it, frankly. And then on the operations side, I think, and industry side, I think it's still just getting going. So we've been at this, pushing 3 years now. And we're still talking to multifamily companies, and many of them are very large, and they still don't do anything with short-term rentals. Maybe they had some corporate leases, but they probably don't have them anymore, whether they were corporate housing or short-term rentals. And they're looking for a way, forward. Or those who have been doing it for the last few years, now they're saying, okay, what do we do next? Do we bring it in-house? But not, actually outsource to an operator and white label it? Do we do revenue share? Do we have one partner? Do we have 10 partners on this? But I think the cat's out of the bag where they understand, the units are little boxes that can throw off cash, and it could be an hourly meeting that you're going to do in this furnished unit. It could, almost like an office space or the refresh model. You go in, you take a shower or whatever after a flight. It can also be one night stays. It could be the monthly stays, so on and so forth. And so, I think the innovation is just getting going, and it's going to come from the multifamily companies, and it's going to come from the kind of ecosystem around that.
So it's not just a convergence that is changing, hospitality convergence that is changing the landscape. It's the way we live that is going to change. One thing that resonated to me so strongly when we prepared for the Flex conference call, one of the panelists said, we're now living in a world where the entire world has become digital nomads, and for that it was actually. Until that sunk in, I was like, actually, it's totally true. So we need to adjust these models. And one thing that I really would like to understand in a way is, how does that affect the investors and the owners, especially, from what you just said, the phone at Vector Travel probably rings 24/7 right now because
it does,
because they want flexibility. They want to say, hey, I'm happy to do a rev share instead of taking lease commitments because I still want to do that. Obviously, consumer behavior is going to fundamentally change. So therefore, the unit economics as a whole are going to change as well. And of course, there is still a cut between long-term tenants and short-term tenants. Of course, we always, when we talked in the heydays last year at Flex, we're like, okay, you can't mix the units with long-term tenants into short-term tenants. The biggest issue for owners last year at the Real World conference in Las Vegas was about screening guests. That was their biggest concern that they had. Getting into
it's still a hard one, but there's solutions now. We use one called AutoHost, great company, and we've integrated it, and we've co-evolved, which I think was kind of the point I was making about multifamily and short-term rentals in general. They're co-evolving, and anyway, it's all getting to a better place. But I hear you on the digital nomad trend too, right? I can imagine. This is almost like a new product for Lincoln or Greystar or somebody to do. Why not membership? Why sign one lease? Why not just sign a membership like the Outsite model or some of those other players out there? Do that within your own inventory. All you got to do is furnish some units and get creative on the legal side.
And you need a good operator as well. And that will be interesting to see that you said, some, and I could definitely agree with you that probably some of the large owners as well, they think about, hey, why don't we bring this in-house and try to build our own operations units, or others say, look, we need now have different type of relationships with operators so we can have a sustainable business model for both sides, because there is a dependency. Because if your operator is gone, then it doesn't help you either, right? So actually manage these assets. And interesting enough, because at the end of the day, you're actually, what we are in vacation rental and short-term rental, and I made a post about this a couple of weeks ago that resonated to me so strongly in the conversation with our staff, is like, we are nothing else than asset managers. And that, to think about this, it's an incredible thought. It's like, even in the vacation rental, private rental industry, we're managing someone's asset, even if it's just one house or one building.
right.
We're not a property manager, we're an asset manager. And I think that is the way we need to start thinking around this, also in how we create this relationship to these multifamily owners, because that's changing.
Well, yeah, and you know, as you know, as in the asset management role, even for individual vacation homeowners, and I used to deal with that a lot with the last business. You know, you've got different preferences. You know, some all they want is maximizing operating income. You know, they say rent this thing as much as you can. You know, give me the best total returns possible. Whereas others say, hey, we're going to do it, but we just want to chip away at the cost of ownership. But we sure as heck want to make sure that when we show back up, that it's just like we left it. And we want you guys to spend all the money you can on maintaining it and keeping it perfect, right? And everywhere in between. And so, you know, I do think coming back to being, you know, us being client driven, I think I had probably learned that from the vacation rental world, and then have applied it in multifamily somewhat successfully so far.
Absolutely. Mickey, being mindful of time, and you have, I don't know, you know, I would like to give you sort of the last word of our conversation, despite the fact that I'm going to do a closing as well. But, you know, with everything you've learned and everything you came through, and you can say, hey, Vector was one of the very few who actually understood how to do it and survived. That's obviously credit to you. What is next for you, and what is the advice you can give to the audience who are any type of stakeholder within the multifamily industry going forward in this?
Yeah, so for us, I mean, it was a tough year, but thankfully we didn't go backwards. And really, you know, since the end of Q3 and into Q4, we've been growing again. And so that's adding new clients and you know, new units and growing revenue, which is amazing still during the midst of the pandemic. And it's only going to get better. And I think, you know, we're trying to stay positive around that and take those wins and then look at the opportunities. So mostly, you know, we've sharpened our tools internally. We've upskilled our team. We've hired more from hospitality, and we keep investing more internally into hospitality, into guest services, into the local markets more and more, especially as we penetrate them further. So all of that we will continue. I think what's likely to change for us, at least in 2021, is we probably are going to be open to you know, some form of broader partnership, or maybe some kind of outside capital infusion, because we have just so many ideas. I think by working so hard and being so thoughtful this year, you know, just to survive, where we've said, okay, there is something we'd like to take on and develop in-house, but you know, we may not have quite the ability to do that as it stands. So for us, we're gonna innovate, we think, quite a bit more in the next year, with tech, with distribution, and then on our business model, as the client needs change. You know, we have a client we've had for 2 years, and we're currently in the process of somewhat reworking that structure, but we're doing so in a way that's kind of win-win for both of us.
Continue innovation, be flexible, commit to the operation. And one thing that I really enjoyed with you, Mickey Kropf, is the negative unit economics are gone. I love that. Mickey, it was great to have you on Red Shoes Talks. Our negative unit economics are history. We need to think about profitability going forward. I wish you and your family a wonderful Christmas period, and for sure a fantastic and successful new year. And with that, I would like to close and thank you very much to participate in Red Shoes Talks. It was a great pleasure to have you. Mickey, all the best.